Today we celebrate the ultimate harbinger of spring and one of the most reliable perennials in the garden. You don't want to miss it, so stay tuned as we garden smart.
These moments of beauty and relaxation are brought to you by Proven Winners Flowering Shrubs. Our goal is to leave you free to just enjoy your garden. Proven Winners Flowering Shrubs can be found at local garden centers across the country.
Power Planter's garden drill augers are designed to help you tackle the digging jobs in your garden or yard. Dig through hard soil to assist in planting trees, shrubs, and annuals. Power Planter's heavy-duty augers, made for professional landscapers and home gardeners alike.
DRAM has been providing gardeners with professional equipment for over 80 years. DRAM products feature 9 water patterns and are designed to nurture your plants with a shower of rain. DRAM for lawn and garden, available at garden centers near you.
The Jaguar F-Pace.
For many gardeners, spring starts when the daffodils bloom, regardless of what the calendar says. They signal the end of the long, cold winter and the rebirth of the garden. They're a symbol of hope and joy. There's perhaps no finer place on earth to enjoy the humble daffodil than Gibbs Gardens, who was recently named one of the best daffodil destinations in the world by Flower magazine. Jim Gibbs has been planting daffodils for over 20 years and now has amassed over 20 million daffodils across a 50-acre outdoor cathedral designed for the sole purpose of letting their stark beauty be enjoyed in a special way. Jim Gibbs is a brilliant horticulturalist and an expert garden designer, and today he's going to unlock the secrets to designing with daffodils and having success in your garden growing this amazing bulb. Jim, thanks so much for joining us. Welcome back to the show.
Nice to see you again, Eric.
Indeed. Well, today we're talking about daffodils, and your garden is known for, among many things, being one of the most impressive daffodil displays in the world. So now it's rated top 10, unquestionably the finest daffodil display in the United States of America, which draws out many, many patrons every year, and it's unbelievable. It reminds me of being in Holland.
Of course, we've been working on this for over 40 years, so it's a big, big garden, 50 acres. And when you think of 50 acres of gardens, and we had to do it in stages because it was so large.
Let's talk about the different categories of daffodils. I know to many newer gardeners, you know, we think of daffodils just as these bulbs that give us these nice yellow flowers, but there's a lot of different intricacies and diversity in the category of daffodils. And I want to help people understand, you know, as we're looking at the category, what are the different options? And let's break it down into different divisions of daffodils and how to start thinking about it as a category of plant.
Of course, daffodils are in the genus Narcissus, and the common name are daffodils and jonquils. But the divisions you're talking about would be, of course, you have the trumpet divisions, which are the large cup, and the small cup. You also have the double daffodils, where, like Tahiti, is a beautiful, beautiful double flower, and it has a strong, sturdy stem to it. You have the tizzetas, which are all several blooms on one stem, and they're all scented. So those are very, very popular.
Oh, yeah.
For some reason in nature, they seem to bloom late. They're in the late category of blooms. You have the hoop petticoat daffodils, and you have the split corona daffodils. So those are the main groups of daffodils. Now we have hybrid daffodils in between all of these.
And so daffodils are a perennial bulb, and many of them do a great job of naturalizing. What are some of the varieties or categories that are the best naturalizers in your experience?
Of course, the daffodils that we have are all naturalizers, because if you plant a daffodil, you want it to divide, because one bulb becomes 2, the 2, 4, and it's a progression, goes on and on and on.
Right.
If you had to plant all new daffodils every year, imagine digging all those new holes, planting those daffodils, and then the repeat of the cost of them would be prohibitive. So we're always looking for daffodils that are going to naturalize and come back year after year. And of course we started in 1985 planting daffodils. Now remember, those first daffodils that divided have divided into hundreds and hundreds into thousands.
Right.
So it keeps going. So now we have over 20 million daffodils.
Unbelievable.
And all of these are naturalizing. So I recommend to everybody, don't pick a daffodil like King Alfred. It's a big, beautiful flower. When you see it in a nursery, you're going to want to pick that one, but it will only bloom 1 or 2 times.
Right.
And then you have to replant everything. So make sure they are naturalizing or perennial daffodils, meaning they come back year after year after year and divide every year.
Excellent.
Okay.
One thing that we need to keep in mind when we're thinking about planting daffodils is the different seasons that they bloom in. So what a lot of people may not know is that you've got a full range of almost 3 months of a potential bloom. Talk us through the different bloom stages of daffodils and how you think about incorporating that into design.
You have early blooming daffodils that bloom for 2 weeks. When they finish blooming, of course, they go out of bloom, and then the early mids come into bloom for 2 weeks. When they go out of bloom, the mid-season come in for 2 weeks. Then those go out of bloom, and the mid-lates come into bloom for 2 weeks. And finally, the late blooming, which seem to all be fragrant, come into bloom for 2 weeks. You have 10 weeks of color.
Wow.
If you want to just have a nice little cut flower garden, make sure you get the early mid, the mid-late, and late, and you'll have 10 weeks. If you don't do that, you could just pick all mids, and then you only have 2 weeks of color.
And it really, really is a great season extender. There's not that many things that are this impressive at this time of year. And a plant category like daffodils that gives you 2.5 months of really, really high impact bloom just by planting it out from the early to the late season bloomers is really well worth the extra effort. When I think about bulbs in my garden's very, very small, and so bulbs are just kind of little splashes of color. And to be honest with you, I don't know that I really think that much about, okay, how would one design with bulbs at any kind of scale? And when I visit Gibbs Garden, you see I think the most amazing thing about the way that you've designed this is the fact it looks completely natural, like you could have chanced upon this, and it's the way that Mother Nature would have just evolved with that plant. And I want you to talk us through the way that you think about it and kind of the process of designing with bulbs in a larger scale.
Well, in a larger scale, you have to design to the topography. You want to study your topography, look at the angles of the land, most important. You want to look at the vertical and the horizontal areas. You want to make sure that you think about sunlight. All daffodils will grow in full sun.
Okay.
So you want to think about what trees are you going to leave, what trees do you remove. You want to select older trees that are high branched so the light gets in to the daffodil flowers. And as you do that, you want to think about the curves. Everything in nature is curvilinear. I always work with a serpentine curve, and those can go on for several, 100 feet or 150, 200 feet. And then at the end, I do an interlocking S-curve to start another serpentine curve. So if you look at nature here, I studied the land and decided I wanted to designate 50 acres of the 376 acres of land at Gibbs Gardens and say this is going to be the daffodil garden, knowing it would take many years to design it. When you get into the edge of trees, you're beginning to get into shade. There are only 2 daffodils that will grow in that area. You have to select early and early mid daffodils to make sure that they finish their light requirements to bloom the next year. They've got to store food in the bulb. So all around this area you'll see trees surrounding it. We have only early and early mid daffodil. Everything else can be any daffodil.
Right, and that's why it's so important that you know what you're planting. Like you said, they will perform under trees, but only select those earlies for that application.
Early and early mid only.
Okay, so as you're thinking about design, Jim, and you're thinking about using earlies through late bloomers, how do you incorporate all of those into a broader design? What's your thought process there?
Well, the first thing I do is know that the early bloomers are going to bloom for 2 weeks and go out of bloom. I designate a vertical element of the garden, like you see these large sweeps following the curves of the land. Notice here too, you want contrasting colors,
Right.
like the yellows, and next to it, something else. It'd be very boring if it was all yellow.
Right.
So you got to think about daffodils and their colors and contrasts. But notice the sweeping curves. But what I would do here is pick in one area to be early, but I may have 3 varieties of early. So when they all finish blooming, the next group would be early mid, and that way the next group would be mid. You plant your early, see in the back for this reason. You want them to bloom first so you don't have spent flowers in front. So you start with the earlies in the back, and the next row forward would be the mids, and the next row right next to you would be the lates. So you always have blooms in front of you.
But that's something that we can apply even to the very smallest gardens. And as you're thinking about incorporating daffodils, one of the most spectacular cool season flowers that we can put into the garden, regardless of the size of your garden, thinking in terms of the earlies at the back all the way to the lates in the front, it's not something I had considered, but that makes so much sense. Jim, one of the things I love about visiting beautiful gardens is that it inspires me to take something amazing that I've seen and try to translate it in a smaller way into my own garden, because there's just so much that we can learn. It's why public gardens, I think, are so important and an amazing educational resource. And seeing these enormous drifts of daffodils has me so excited about finding some areas in my garden where I can really create some dynamic shows of color and really start incorporating these cool season bulbs into my garden, which are not well represented right now. So for the home gardener, let's start all the way from the beginning. What do we need to be thinking about if we want to put in, a dynamic bulb display? And let's start by talking about the soil, which is very important for bulbs.
Well, for daffodils, of course, you want a soil that has a pH of between 6 and 7. 6.5 is perfect. If it's acidic, it's going to be below 7, and if it's alkaline, it's above 7.
Right.
You don't want to get it too alkaline, so you got to be doing pH test on it. It needs to be about 6.5 to do well. So the first thing to do is do a pH on your soil and check it. The next thing you want to do is begin to think about the bed that you're going to prepare to plant the daffodils or tulips or pansies in. Now, when you think about that, you want to have good drainage. So it's better to work the soil up and mound it slightly in the middle.
Right.
So the water drains both sides. Now, after you do that, you want to think about mixing in some topsoil, some sand, compost, mix them all together, work them into the existing clay. And it's easier to plant daffodils and tulips when the ground isn't as compacted. So
Right.
that's good to do too.
Yeah, and compacted soil can be very problematic with bulbs, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that they don't like soggy soil too. And if you don't have good drainage, you're going to definitely have problems growing daffodils, tulips, many of the bulbs that we really like to plant this time of year.
Without good drainage, they're going to die. All the bulbs will rot.
What are the best sites for daffodils and tulips for the bulbs that we may want to plant?
If you are planting daffodils where there's some tree borders, you want to use only early and early mid daffodils. The reason is they've got to have time to have the green foliage turn yellow or brown. That when you see yellow, you know there's enough food nourishment in that bulb to produce a bloom for the next year. So it's very important to not ever cut the green foliage. Some people cut it, it won't bloom the next year.
So let's talk about the way that we think about in smaller plantings using drifts of color and incorporating earlies, mids, late, and maybe even incorporating those into beds that would have other bulbs like tulips represented.
All of the daffodils are planted in curves, drifts. Once you get your curves in place and decide where to plant the daffodils, you can begin to mix companion plants such as pansies do great with daffodils and tulips. Quince, which bloom early, a flowering shrub, forsythia and spirea are great companion plants for daffodil gardens because they bloom at the same time. But here too, you want to think about designing and planting daffodils and tulips for different heights. Tulips have taller stems and short stems. It's better to have the depth in the bed and at the base have pansies to give you that wonderful depth of bloom. So think about your bed. It can be small or large, but still get a little curve to it. It makes them show up better. Just a straight line of tulips or daffodils or pansies is not very appealing.
And I love the way that you've incorporated all of these different heights and as you said, adding depth to our planting by adding pansies or some low-growing plants that are also blooming at the same time. That also extends the season of interest for that bed, and especially if our space is limited, we're trying to get as much out of that little area as we possibly can. And then as we think of bulbs, using the S-curve beds, thinking about different heights, and also considering how do we get the longest growing season of interest out of this bed. So everything from the earlies all the way through to the lates, then we've composed a design that's going to last for months.
When you add the tulips, you're adding another 6 weeks because they have early that bloom for 2 weeks, mids that bloom for 2 weeks, lates that bloom for 2 weeks. They're great cut flowers also. So you've extended it now to 13 weeks of color. So nothing could be better. And with daffodils, remember you've got all the trumpets. Some are large cup, some are small cup. Some of them have bright orange trumpets, whereas some of them have pink or apricot or white or different colors. Here you've got large tulip heads and small.
And in the world of daffodils, there really is a lot more diversity that I think a lot of us are aware of, especially when we come here and we see just the incredible breadth of what's available to us, and getting incorporating as many of those as we can into design, I think also just makes the bed just that much more interesting and that much more exciting. Jim, as gardeners, we love bringing the nature inside the house, and cut flowers are one of the things that I think is just exciting about the way that we interact with the garden throughout the year. And one thing that many people may not know is that bulbs, specifically daffodils and tulips, really do make great cut flowers.
They're the best. People love daffodils for cut flowers and tulips because they give you a long time to bloom in the house if you just cut them properly.
Right. So let's talk about some of the considerations that we might have from a standpoint of having the most success with using bulbs as cut flowers.
Well, I find that most people do not realize you do not cut a daffodil or tulip up higher. You have to snap it at the base. And if you snap it where it's white, this will keep the sap inside the stem. Daffodils and tulips draw the water and nutrients up from this white part up into the stem. If you cut it with a pair of pruners, it drains all the water out. So the life expectancy in a vase is shortened by probably half the period of time. So it's real good to go all the way to the base and snap it, and you're going to have a long stem. Now, put those in a vase for about 3 hours. Leave them there. Give them time to soak up the water that's in the vase. Now, after about 3 hours, you can make a cut because they've taken up enough water to last for 10 days in a vase. The sap has calcium oxalate in it, which forms these little small bundles of crystals. And those crystals are what help lock this sap in long enough to take up more water.
And the calcium oxalate, it basically acts as a toxin for other cut flowers too. So it is important when we're using daffodils in combination with other flowers to give them that time on their own in a vase so that they're now drawing up new water, because otherwise they'll basically just short life the other plants that we're using in that arrangement.
Exactly. It will kill the flowers that are already in the vase because you've got to condition them first. But if you put that in right away, all that poison goes into the water that the other flowers are drawing up.
In using bulbs as cut flowers, it really underscores the importance of thinking about the way that we plant the garden to that end. So using the full spectrum of earlies to lates, and then also incorporating things like tulips that have a different bloom cycle, you really can gain 3, maybe 3+ months of wonderful cut flowers for the interior of your home.
Exactly, and you have all the different shapes of flower. For example, the tulips, look at this double. Looks like a peony.
Yeah.
And then you've got the parrot tulip. But all these shapes and forms, and when you put them in a vase, they're beautiful together. So you want to mix them up.
Jim, you've been planting daffodils at Gibbs Garden for over 40 years, and they only look more and more amazing every single year. Before we let you go, I'd like for you to talk about any of the maintenance concerns that there might be with daffodils. And let's start with fertility. Is there anything that you have to do from a standpoint of just making sure that they get the nutrition they need?
If you want more blooms, it's better to use a fertilizer that's low in nitrogen and low in phosphorus, high in potassium.
Okay.
So 10-10-20 is a good fertilizer to apply, and you put that on in December when the little buds are coming out of the bulb, but fairly noticeable. Then you can go through with just a lime spreader and spread the lime out over the area.
Let's talk about insect and disease pressure. Is there anything that is trying to attack our daffodils throughout the year?
The lowest maintenance plants you can ever plant.
Wow,
Daffodil.
I love the
Nothing.
sound of that.
They absolutely are wonderful. But daffodils have no requirements. They divide on their own. They're perennial, so they're easy to grow. So they're sort of taking care of themselves maintenance-wise. Tulips, on the other hand, our summers are too hot. They cannot go through a summer, so they won't bloom the next year. We pull them up and throw them away. Tulips, you have to spray with a deer repellent. Deer love tulips. If it rains a lot, you do it once a week. If it doesn't, once every 2 weeks. So that's a lot of maintenance to do. Daffodils, the deer will not ever touch them. The reason is calcium oxalate that's in the sap of the daffodil, causing a poison to develop in there. So when the deer eat into the daffodil, they will never touch daffodil again. So you have no problems with deer.
Finding a category of plants like daffodils that deer don't want to eat, require almost no maintenance. Is there a more perfect plant, Jim?
No.
Well, Jim, what an amazing day. We always learn so much from you and your daffodils. Well, they're second to none. And it's always a treat to come walk the lanes of your garden and of course to see the splendor of these millions of daffodils. It's amazing. Thank you.
Eric, you're a great horticulturist, and every time I come, we talk and I learn something from you too.
Yeah, thank you, Jim.
It's great.
Appreciate it.
Enjoyed it.
Each week we travel the country north to south, east to west, visiting some of the most exciting gardens, as well as talking to industry horticulturalists about design principles, new plants, and also how you can be most successful with your home gardens. We also love answering your gardening questions, so visit us on the web at GardenSMART.com.
These moments of beauty and relaxation are brought to you by Proven Winners Flowering Shrubs. Our goal is to leave you free to just enjoy your garden. Proven Winners Flowering Shrubs can be found at local garden centers across the country.
Power Planters garden drill augers are designed to help you tackle the digging jobs in your garden or yard. Dig through hard soil to assist in planting trees, shrubs, and annuals. Power Planters heavy-duty augers, made for professional landscapers and home gardeners alike.
DRAM has been providing gardeners with professional equipment for over 80 years. DRAM products feature 9 water patterns and are designed to nurture your plants with a shower of rain. DRAM for lawn and garden, available at garden centers near you.
The Jaguar F-Pace.
I always learn so much when I spend the day with Jim. His commitment to highlighting great garden plants in a way that creates an emotional response and inspires all has always impressed me and keeps me coming back to his garden season after season. If you have questions about anything you've seen today, visit us on the web at GardenSMART.com. You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram, as well as new video tips on our GardenSMART YouTube channel. We hope you enjoyed the show and that you join us next week as we Garden Smart.